You know, when I think back, the first thing that comes to my mind is 2016 Lewis Street. That's where the entire connection is. There are very few times in our lives where we don't have the opportunity to pick the people around us. One of those is when you go in the military, because there's going to be a lot of strangers there around you. Um, Another is if you get in trouble and you go to prison, you don't get to select those individuals around you because there's no freedom in that. Everywhere else you go, though, you pretty much get to select everybody who's going to be around you in your life. That doesn't apply with families, though. We don't get to choose our family. Our family is there. They're the first people we know, the first people we love. So for me, again, everything goes back to 2016 Lewis Street, where I was born. And I remember vividly being a child and growing up in this household where I saw all these people that I did not get to choose, but were a part of my life. And the strongest memories are the ones framed in black and white, I guess you could say. My grandmother had on the front porch, my grandmother had a table, a coffee table that had pictures in it. And I can remember looking in this coffee table and seeing pictures, and there were these black and white photographs of these children that I did not know at the time were my uncles and my mother and my Aunt Patricia and all the folks that were there. But I can remember seeing in the yard, just 2 or 3 years old, pictures of Papa and Rabbit and my mom and Julia May. My grandmother was very prescient. She very forceful, I'll put it that way. She was a force of nature, actually, Agnes Gordon Henry. She let you do certain things. You did not do them. You did what she allowed you to do. So when my mom and my uncles and aunt, had children, she let them name their children. She gave everybody their nicknames. She's the reason I'm Danny, and my brother Bruce Jerome Henry is Jerome, and my cousin Cricket is named after a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girl from The Young and the Restless. And if you look at Cricket, well, let's just say she's not blonde-haired, blue eyes, and doesn't look anything like Cricket, but my grandmother liked her, so that became her nickname. She was no different when it came to my Uncle Wilbur and my Uncle Rabbit and my Uncle Papa. Again, very prescient. My Uncle Wilbur, his nickname was Wilbur. That's what she called him. That's what I always knew him as, Uncle Wilbur. It was his nickname. But the name Wilbur means brilliant. When I think of man, woman, and child, I think of the sun, the moon, and the stars, with the man of the household being the sun. And since Uncle Wilbur was our patriarch, he was always this brilliant force. She was very prescient in naming that. When you think of rabbits, you think they're very fast, they're athletic, and they're agile. Another thing you think of is they're fertile. Well, Rabbit was probably, arguably, the #1 athlete in the city of Jacksonville. I think there was only one other person in the city I ever used to hear about. It was a guy named Rackley out of Lackawanna, but Rabbit was this amazing athlete. And as far as the fertile part, well, if you look around, there are a lot of little Aurelius Henrys around. So she was very prescient with his nickname as well. And then there was Papa Sterling. I remember the first time I heard the Temptations song, Papa Was a Rolling Stone. I remember exactly that, the first time I heard it. But I remember hearing it as a little child and thinking to myself, man, is that song about Papa? Did they make that song about Papa? And of course, then I grew up and I got a little older and I started thinking to myself, yeah, they pretty much made that song about Papa. Again, my grandmother's prescience. Papa really was a rolling stone. Papa did things his way. the only way he could. He lived a very unique life, one that was not defined by what other people thought, other people's mores. He didn't live for critics or criticism. He lived his life, his way. I remember being a child, one of my earliest memories, and again from looking at a photograph actually, was seeing a photograph of him holding me in the street right outside of my grandmother's house, 2016 Lewis Street. Papa would take me down to the grocery store with him, the Joseph store, and he would go get his cigarettes. He had just come back from the war. He had been in Vietnam. And Papa would smoke Cool Filter Kings. I remember that. Cool Filter Kings. In fact, at one point, as I got a little bit older, he would send me down to the store to get his cigarettes. And of course, I was a child and wasn't supposed to sell cigarettes to children, but they were like, "You come to get these for Papa?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then, of course, while I was there, I would get some hog head cheese from my granddaddy, but I still don't know what's up with the hog head cheese. I just don't. But I would go get those things for Papa. Papa was different, very much than Rabbit and Uncle Wilbur. Uncle Wilbur was a lot older than everybody else. So I always looked at him as a man. Papa, though, Papa and Rabbit, they were right there with my mama, and my mother wasn't terribly older than me, so I never really looked at them in the sense that they were untouchable or unattainable, or that I could not approach them. They were more like much older brothers, and each one of them had different impacts on me. I've spoken before about Rabbit's impact and Uncle Wilbur's, but Papa's was a little bit different. People who know me well. They know that, I'm a bit of an iconoclast, I guess you would say. I tend to do my own thing. I tend to think my own way. And you don't really think where you get the influences to do those things when you're young. But I sat back and reflected over a long period of time, not simply because of this. I reflected a while back. And a lot of the freedom in my thoughts and my mind comes from Papa. Papa didn't worry about what somebody else thought about him. Papa was humble in his own way. I don't believe in the idea of mythology, that I'm going to sit here and tell a story about Papa that is not true, or don't speak directly to who exactly he was. We know very well who Papa was. If there was a rule, Papa probably broke it. If there was an herb or something to be smoked, Papa probably smoked it. And he drank, and he had a good time, and he enjoyed his life. One of the things that stood out to me about this life, though, it was one of acceptance. People look at me now and they say, "Well, Dad, you got all kind of friends from all spectrums or whatever." And I was like, you know what? My Papa, Papa did. Papa loved people. Papa, the first gay people I ever knew were Papa's friends. The first folks who didn't have jobs, and who other people would consider homeless or be bums, they were Papa's friends. And I treat people a certain way now, really because of the way, unknowingly at the time, I was influenced by him. I wish I could tell you that I always treated my uncle well. I wish I could, but I didn't. I wish I could tell you that every time I called the house to look for my mother, and Papa answered the phone, and we sat on the phone and we talked for 30 minutes and laughed and talked. We didn't do that. I wish I could tell you that every time I met somebody, I made sure to introduce them to my Uncle Papa. I didn't do that. I can tell you honestly that Papa never treated me like he was better than me. But I can look honestly back on many times that I probably acted like I was better than him. I wish I could tell you that every time he asked me, "Danny, let me hold something," that I let him hold something. I did not. But I can't dwell on those things right now. They'd be maddening. What I can think about, though, are the times when I did let him hold something, the times I did share with him and introduce my friends, the times that I did get a chance to laugh and talk with him. When I first came back to Jacksonville, I went to go sneak by the Urban League to see my mother. And she wasn't there, but who was there? With Papa. And we hung out in the hallway and laughed and talked for a little bit. And I was like, don't tell her I'm trying to surprise her. And he didn't tell her anything. He let her sneak back in there, and I surprised her. There are times where I've come home and just came by the house and laughed and talked with him. In hindsight, I wish I had done it more, but I can't change that now. But I think about those times that I did. I also think about why I came back home. I've been gone for about 20 years. And people look at me and say, well, Danny, you've had a pretty successful life and you've been able to do all these amazing things and you live in this great place and you met all these famous people and all those things. But there was a longing on me for some time to come back home. I couldn't really understand why. I just knew it had to do something with family. My desire to be closer to family, my desire to do things with my family, the fact that I had been gone for 20 years and saw the necessity, something pulling on my heartstrings. I worked for Veterans Affairs, and Papa was a veteran from the Vietnam War era. And he came to the VA to be seen, and he and Mickey called me and let me know that they were going to be coming, they were going to have surgery. And I was trying to get Mickey set up in a place where it was kind of like a Ronald McDonald House for veterans called Fisher House. And he was going to be there for a procedure. And I was actually walking down the hallway. I'm Chief of Public Relations for VA. And I was going down the hall, and a veteran needed some help, and I was helping him. And came around the corner, ran into Mickey and Papa, surprisingly. They weren't in a place where I thought they might be, and I told them I'd be right back. And I came back and I, gave Mickey a hug and Papa, and I was like, hey, what's going on? And they let me know what's going on. And while I was there, I ran into him again that day, and he was going in to see a doctor. I didn't know what they were talking about. The doctor was looking at me like I was crazy because, like, why are you in here? And I had explained who I was, but let them do their doctor thing. And they had canceled the surgery. They were going to, they had found something. They were going to do some tests to see what it was. I got a phone call the next day. It was my mother telling me that they had found advanced cancer and that they were canceling the surgery. There was nothing they could do. I went upstairs and I went in his room and he was asleep. And I woke him up. And I was like, hey, man. He was like, hey, Danny, you look like a preacher boy. And I was like, yeah, I get that a lot. And I sat down, and, it's funny, the TV was on, and it was on a Western. And it reminded me in that moment of my grandmother because she used to watch Westerns. I used to watch Westerns with her. I also used to watch The Young and the Restless with her. I still watch The Young and the Restless. But that particular day with Papa, we were watching this Western. And I knew in that moment the gravity of the situation. Papa's demeanor didn't change at all. We didn't talk about his diagnosis. We didn't talk about cancer. We were trying to figure out who this dude was on Bonanza because he looked like another dude. And so we were arguing, in a sense, about a character from a 1970s Western. We never really had a discussion about his diagnosis, other than I asked him, if they were taking care of him, did he need anything? And he said, they sending me home, and I would just live with it till I can't live no more. And I asked him if they had any pain medication, if he needed something. He said, yeah, I got something. And I said, well, this is my hospital. I know some people. I can get you some stronger stuff. And we laughed and talked about it. We never talked about that anymore. We just laughed and talked a little bit and cracked some jokes about my mama and Mickey a little bit. And I stood up and I told him that told him I loved him. I kissed him on his forehead. I believe in that moment both of us knew that we would likely never see each other again, at least not on this plane. I've had moments since then that where I got emotional, where I wondered, or I thought to myself I could have treated him better, or that I should have treated him better, but I had to stop that because I had to think about the time we spent together that was well. That plus the fact that my mother was kind of losing her mind and calling me and trying to get some kind of answers to things, and not wanting to accept the reality of the situation. And that's who she is, a nurturing person. When Papa came home, he said, Julie May said, "You coming to live with me? He a better man than me because I can't live with Julie May." But he went to go live with his sister, and she welcomed he and Mickey into her home. My mother is a good woman, and an even more awesome mother, and even more amazing sister for doing that. She and I had conversations, and she called, and she's like, "Well, Danny, we want to go to the Mayo Clinic," and I'm like, "Well, Mama, if they send him home, there's really nothing they can do." "Well, Danny, we want to do this," and it's like, "Mama, this is how it's going to work, but this is what you can do, and that's the extent of it." And there's a very practical, you have to understand, there's a very practical part of me that's getting through this. Is she's worried about things, and I'm like, "Well, Mama, just leave him be, let him be okay, let him live his life." And she's like, "Well, Danny, he over here drinking, and Danny, he's smoking cigarettes." And I say, "Mama, them cigarettes ain't gonna kill him." We don't want to accept the realities of life, but one of the most powerful realities of all of our lives is that one day we're going to die. We're never ready for our loved ones to leave us. I always say that I have not suffered the kind of loss that other people have suffered as close to me. I've not lost my siblings. I've not lost my parent. But I've watched my cousins lose their siblings, and my aunts and uncles lose their children, and now my mother lose her brothers. I wish I could give you some sort of solace. Mickey and Michael and Mita and Boog and the family. Mickey, who has been with Papa through thick and thin and in and out and everything else. I wish I could give you some kind of words that could soothe the pain that's inside of you, to let you know that everything is going to be okay. And I'm sure in the great scheme of things, by grace, it is. But I'm also wanting you to know that it's okay for you to grieve. Don't let anybody dictate to you how you're supposed to feel. We have this idea, again, this mythology, this theology that we're supposed to act like nothing is wrong and we're supposed to act a certain way. But if you love this man like I know you did and went through everything with him that you did, you grieve in the manner that you want to grieve. But also know that you know Papa and he's all right. Mama, I wish I could give you, as his sister, some sort of solace. Uncle Wilbert, as his brother. I can't do those things. But I would ask that you lean on his memory. The Papa that we know, that we all know and love and was unique to us. And know that he wouldn't be sitting up here worried about y'all. He'd be all right. I'm glad I got the chance to spend the time with him that I did at the end. I know it's only by grace that I got the opportunity to do that. I wish I could be there with y'all today, but know that I am in spirit and in love. I love each and every one of you. And I love Papa.